Ethan's phone buzzed just as he lifted his morning coffee. A new email slid onto the screen. Your vasectomy consultation is confirmed for Friday, 9:00 a.m. His hand froze above the counter. He reread the message once, twice, a third time. He had never booked anything. A chill crawled down his spine. He called the clinic, hoping it was a mistake. The nurse answered with calm certainty. Oh, your girlfriend Melissa scheduled it for you. She said you approved. The room seemed to tilt. Ethan felt something snap inside him, quiet, sharp, undeniable. This wasn't an appointment. It was a line crossed. And it was only the beginning. Ethan drove home with the email still burning in his mind. He opened the door and found Melissa scrolling on the couch. He stood there for a moment, gathering the words he feared to say. Did you schedule a vasectomy consultation for me? Melissa looked up slowly, as if he had asked about the weather. Yes, I did. It's practical. We need to start planning long-term. Ethan felt his jaw tighten as the words pressed against his chest. You didn't ask me. You didn't even mention it. She shrugged with a calmness that made everything worse. I've taken birth control for more than 10 years. It's your turn now. Ethan tried to breathe, but the air felt thin and bitter. This is my body. You made a medical decision for me without consent. Melissa rolled her eyes, as if he were being dramatic again. You always react like this. You're too sensitive about everything. The dismissal hit harder than the appointment itself. Ethan's hands trembled with a mix of anger and disbelief. You crossed a boundary, a serious one. You can't decide for me. Melissa leaned back, folding her arms as though she were the victim. I'm the one who has suffered the side effects for years. You never notice. Her voice sharpened as she spoke, slicing through his thoughts. I'm tired of carrying all the responsibility. You don't step up. Ethan shook his head, stunned by how she reframed the entire issue. This isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about respect. Melissa fired back instantly, her tone cold and defensive. You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just a consultation. Ethan's stomach twisted, because it wasn't just that. It was every moment she had rearranged his drawers without asking. Every shirt of his she donated because she didn't like the color. Every plan she scheduled on their behalf without checking with him. Every decision she made as if his preferences were background noise. This appointment wasn't isolated. It was the clearest version of a pattern he had ignored too long. He tried again, softer this time, hoping she would hear him. You can't keep deciding things for both of us. I have a say too. Melissa shook her head with a frustrated sigh. I do what I do because you're indecisive. Someone has to manage things. The words stung because she said them like a fact she had memorized. Ethan stepped back, feeling the floor shift under his certainty. I'm not a project you manage. I'm your partner. Melissa pressed her lips together, unmoved by his plea. You're blowing this up. You always turn solutions into problems. The conversation was no longer about the appointment. It was about being heard, or rather, never being heard. Ethan felt the weight of years settle on his shoulders in one moment. Something in him cracked open, letting clarity pour through. If he didn't stand up for himself now, the line would vanish forever. And Melissa, without hesitation, would cross it again. Ethan barely slept that night. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every word Melissa had thrown at him. Her calmness, her certainty, her belief that she could decide for him because she managed things better. The more he thought, the heavier the truth became. This wasn't the first time she had crossed a boundary. It wasn't the second. It wasn't even the 10th. He remembered the day she donated half his t-shirts because she thought they were outdated. He remembered coming home to find their entire living room rearranged without warning. He remembered the weekend trip she booked, paid, and planned without asking if he could take time off. Every memory stacked like bricks on his chest. He realized he had learned to swallow discomfort just to keep peace. But the appointment had snapped something deep inside him. By dawn, Ethan made a decision he never imagined he would take. If Melissa wouldn't understand boundaries from words, maybe she would from experience. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just a mirror. A chance for her to feel what he felt. He sat at the kitchen table, with his laptop glowing in the dim light. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard before he typed. He searched for a local therapist, specializing in control and anxiety dynamics. The description pierced him more than he expected. He booked the earliest available session for Melissa. He entered her email. He paid in full. Non-refundable. The confirmation pinged instantly, loud in the silent kitchen. Ethan took a long breath, unsure if he should feel guilty or relieved. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt exhausted. Later that afternoon, he heard Melissa's phone vibrate from the living room. A brief silence followed. Then her footsteps thundered down the hall. She held her phone up like a piece of evidence in a courtroom. "What is this, Ethan?" Her voice trembled with fury as she shoved the screen toward him. "Why did I get a confirmation for a therapy session I didn't book?" Ethan met her eyes quietly. "I scheduled it for you." Melissa stared at him as if he had spoken a foreign language. "You what? Are you out of your mind?" Her anger flooded the room, sharp and familiar. "You think you can force me into therapy? Who do you think you are?" Ethan kept his tone steady, refusing to be intimidated. "I did the same thing you did to me. You made a decision for my body. I made a decision for your mind." Melissa's mouth opened, then closed without a comeback. Her silence was louder than her shouting. "You had no right," she finally snapped, grasping for control. Ethan nodded slowly. "That's exactly what I felt when I saw that email." Melissa's anger wavered for a split second, replaced by confusion he rarely saw. "You're trying to teach me a lesson," she accused, though her voice softened. "No," Ethan said. "I just want you to understand what it feels like." The room held its breath between them. For the first time, the balance of power had shifted. And Melissa didn't know where to stand. Melissa left the house within an hour, slamming the door so hard the frame shuddered. Ethan didn't follow her. He didn't call. He didn't apologize. For the first time in years, he let the silence stand. By evening, his phone lit up with a name he expected but dreaded. Harper. Melissa's older sister. The self-appointed guardian of every problem Melissa ever had. He let the phone ring twice before answering. Harper's voice hit him instantly, sharp as broken glass. "What on earth did you do to my sister?" Ethan breathed out slowly, already knowing where this was going. "I scheduled a therapy appointment for her." Harper scoffed so loudly, it rattled through the receiver. "You can't force someone into therapy. That's manipulative and controlling." Ethan closed his eyes and leaned against the counter. "That's the exact thing Melissa did to me with the medical consultation." Harper didn't hesitate. "That's completely different. She was trying to help your relationship." Ethan felt a bitter laugh push against his throat. "By making medical decisions for my body without asking me." Harper launched into a rapid-fire lecture, barely pausing to breathe. "You're overreacting. Melissa has been under pressure for years. She just wants fairness." Ethan tightened his grip on the phone, feeling frustration twist through him. Fairness doesn't mean removing someone's autonomy. Harper dismissed his words instantly, as though he were a child protesting a bedtime. "You men never understand what women go through with birth control." Ethan answered softly, not combative, just truthful. "I understand her frustration, but frustration isn't consent." There was a long silence on the line, Harper searching for a new angle. "You still shouldn't have gone behind her back like that." Ethan's voice dropped, steady and unshaken. "That's the point. She went behind mine." Harper exhaled angrily, but the certainty in her tone faltered. This still doesn't excuse your behavior. Ethan shook his head, feeling a clarity he hadn't allowed himself before. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for acknowledgement. Harper clicked her tongue in frustration. You're twisting this into something it's not. Ethan pushed away from the counter, packing slowly. No, I'm holding up a mirror. Melissa didn't like what she saw. Harper's tone hardened once more, hiding uncertainty behind volume. You're going to lose her if you keep acting like this. Ethan felt a heavy ache in his chest, but didn't let it sway him. I don't want to lose her, but I can't lose myself either. Harper went silent again, longer this time. When she spoke, her voice was lower, though still edged. She's upset. She's staying here tonight. She needs space. Ethan nodded, even though she couldn't see him. She can have all the space she needs. Harper tried one last time, her final swing. You should be the one apologizing. Ethan closed his eyes and let the truth settle in his voice. I will apologize when she understands why I'm hurt, not before. Harper hung up without saying goodbye. The call ended, but the battle lines felt clearer than ever. This wasn't just a fight between two partners. It had become a conflict between two worlds, one built on control and one built on boundaries. And for the first time, Ethan chose his world. Melissa returned 2 days later, standing in the doorway like a storm waiting to break. Harper followed close behind her, arms crossed, expression carved from stone. Ethan felt his pulse quicken, but kept his posture calm and open. Melissa stepped inside without asking, her jaw clenched tight. Harper positioned herself beside her sister, like a bodyguard on alert. Ethan waited, letting them speak first. Harper didn't hesitate. We need to settle this. Melissa deserves an apology. Ethan felt the familiar sting of being talked over, talked around, talked through. He nodded slowly, but not in agreement, in acknowledgement of the moment. What exactly do I need to apologize for? Harper lifted her chin, ready to prosecute. For forcing her into therapy, for humiliating her. Melissa's eyes tightened, as though bracing for impact. Ethan breathed in quietly, feeling the weight of every unspoken moment. I didn't force her into anything. I mirrored what she did to me. Harper scoffed, stepping forward. You men love playing the victim when you're wrong. Ethan ignored the jab and focused on Melissa. I'm talking to you, not your sister. Can you hear me? Melissa shifted, guilt flickering in her eyes before Harper cut in again. She hears everything, and she knows you're being unreasonable. Ethan kept his voice steady, refusing to escalate. Melissa made a medical appointment for my body without asking. That is not reasonable. Melissa finally spoke, her voice trembling. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted help. Ethan softened, but didn't let the moment slide away. You can ask for help without crossing a boundary. Harper clapped her hands once, frustrated. This is going nowhere. Hear what we're proposing. Ethan braced himself as she laid out the terms like a contract. Melissa will cancel the therapy session you forced on her. And you will go to the vasectomy consultation she booked. You attend the appointment. You show commitment. And then all of this can be forgiven. Ethan stared at her, stunned by the audacity. Melissa avoided his eyes, as if hoping he would agree just to end the tension. Ethan finally spoke, quiet but unbreakable. No. Harper stepped forward, palms slicing through the air. What do you mean, no? Ethan stood taller, feeling his voice strengthen. I'm not bargaining with my body. I'm not accepting a trade. Harper opened her mouth to attack, but Ethan continued. And I'm not accepting an apology that isn't real. Melissa flinched slightly, the truth landing heavier than expected. Ethan looked at her gently. You apologized for making me upset, not for taking control. Melissa swallowed hard, her defenses cracking. That wasn't my intention. Intent isn't the problem, Ethan said softly. Impact is. The room fell silent. Harper looked at Melissa, urging her with her eyes to push back. But Melissa didn't move. Her shoulders dropped, exhaustion replacing anger. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll go to the therapy session. I'll talk about everything." Harper spun toward her in disbelief. "Melissa, you don't have to." Melissa shook her head, finally standing on her own ground. "I need to understand why I did what I did." Harper fell silent, her influence dimming. Ethan watched the shift with a cautious hope. Not victory. Not defeat. Just truth making its first crack in the armor. Melissa turned to Ethan, voice barely above a breath. "I'll go, but not for you, for me." Ethan nodded, relieved in a way he hadn't expected. For the first time in a long time, the room felt balanced, even if only by an inch. Melissa arrived at the therapist's office with her shoulders stiff and her jaw locked. She walked inside as if preparing for a cross-examination, not a conversation. The waiting room felt too quiet, too bright, too still for the storm inside her. When the therapist called her name, she inhaled sharply and stepped forward. She sat on the couch, arms folded, expression guarded like a closed door. The therapist smiled gently, inviting calm without forcing it. "Melissa, tell me what brings you here today." Melissa exhaled, already defensive. "My boyfriend scheduled this without telling me. It was humiliating." The therapist nodded, not judging, simply listening. "That must have felt violating, having something planned for you like that." Melissa blinked, surprised by the phrasing. "Yes, exactly, violating." The therapist leaned forward slightly, voice steady and warm. "Is that how Ethan felt when you scheduled the vasectomy consultation for him?" Melissa froze, air stalling in her lungs. I didn't do it to violate him. I did it because I've been on birth control forever." The therapist nodded again, acknowledging her perspective. "It's understandable to feel overwhelmed or frustrated with contraception." Melissa relaxed a little, relieved to be understood. "But," the therapist continued gently, "your frustration doesn't give you ownership over another person's body." The words hit Melissa like a sudden shift in gravity. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers slowly. "I wasn't trying to control him," she whispered, unsure of her own honesty. The therapist tilted her head kindly. "Control isn't always intentional. Sometimes it's a pattern we learned long ago." Melissa's chest tightened as memories flickered, moments she dismissed without thought. Rearranging Ethan's drawers because his system was efficient. Throwing out his clothes because she knew he'd look better without them. Booking trips for both of them without asking about his schedule. She swallowed hard as the pattern unfolded with painful clarity. The therapist continued softly, giving room for reflection. "When Ethan made the therapy appointment without asking, how did you feel?" Melissa's eyes lifted, suddenly bright with raw truth. "I felt powerless, angry, exposed." The therapist nodded again, gentle but firm. "That feeling is what you gave him, even if the motivations were different." Melissa pressed her palms to her knees, grounding herself against the realization. "He said he wanted me to understand," she murmured, more to herself than to the room. "And do you?" the therapist asked. A long silence stretched before Melissa answered. "I think, yes, maybe for the first time." The therapist offered a small, reassuring smile. "That understanding is the beginning of change. Not guilt, not shame, awareness." Melissa blinked back a rush of emotions she didn't expect to feel here. She had come to defend herself. Instead, she found the edges of a truth she had never dared face. The therapist spoke again, quiet and steady. "Control often comes from fear. What do you fear losing?" Melissa shut her eyes as her voice cracked. "Losing him." The therapist nodded, voice calm as a hand on a trembling shoulder. "Let's work on choosing connection over control." Melissa left the office feeling shaken, uncertain, and strangely lighter. The anger she carried in had dissolved into something quieter, accountability. She wasn't ready to face Ethan yet. But for the first time, she wanted to understand herself, not just defend herself. And that shift felt like the beginning of something she couldn't name, but needed. Melissa drove home from the therapy session, feeling hollow and unsteady. The city lights blurred past her window, as if the world moved faster than she could follow. When she walked through the door, Ethan looked up cautiously, unsure of her mood. She didn't shout. She didn't slam anything. She simply stood there, breathing slowly, trying to gather words that didn't come easily. "I went," she finally said, her voice soft but trembling. Ethan nodded, not pushing, just listening. Melissa walked further into the room and sat down across from him. "I didn't realize how much I've been controlling things," she whispered. Ethan didn't interrupt. The silence between them felt different now, not hostile, just heavy. "The therapist said control can come from fear," she continued. "I didn't think I was afraid, but I guess I am." Her hands twisted in her lap, restless and apologetic. "I'm scared of losing you, scared of things falling apart if I don't manage them." Ethan leaned forward slightly, his voice gentle. "You don't have to manage me, you just have to trust me." Melissa blinked quickly, fighting the sting of tears. "I know, I'm trying to unlearn this. It's harder than I thought." Ethan exhaled, letting some of his own tension dissolve. "I'm not perfect either, but we can figure this out if we're honest." Melissa nodded, hope flickering through her uncertainty. Over the next weeks, she continued attending therapy, slowly peeling back the layers of her habits. She learned how her anxiety disguised itself as responsibility. She learned how micromanaging gave her a false sense of safety. She learned how easily she replaced communication with control. At home, she practiced new behaviors in small, intentional steps. She asked Ethan before moving things around the house. She paused before making plans and checked with him first. She listened, without forming immediate solutions in her head. Sometimes she slipped. Sometimes she caught herself reaching for old habits before they fully surfaced. But each time, she acknowledged it, not defensively, not angrily, just honestly. Ethan noticed the difference in the quiet moments. The way she paused. The way she asked. The way she breathed before reacting. They started attending couples therapy together, facing the old wounds that had shaped the newer ones. Ethan voiced the resentment he had buried in silence for years. Melissa accepted it without minimizing or redirecting. It hurt both of them, but it cleared space for something new. As they rebuilt trust, they revisited the conversation about contraception, this time as equals. Melissa researched alternatives, and after careful discussion, she chose an IUD. Not out of obligation, not out of anger, but out of shared decision-making. Ethan held her hand before the appointment, grounding her when anxiety crept in. Afterward, she rested beside him, feeling supported rather than controlled. 3 months passed, steady and imperfect. Their home felt different, quieter, softer, more balanced. One evening, Melissa was cooking when she turned to Ethan with a small smile. "What do you want for dinner tonight?" The question was simple, but the meaning behind it carried the weight of all the changes she had worked for. Ethan smiled back, feeling something warm settle in his chest. For the first time in a long time, he felt chosen, not managed. Melissa felt it too. Not victory. Not defeat. Just connection slowly replacing fear, one small decision at a time. Spring arrived quietly, warming the windows and softening the corners of their days. Ethan woke earlier now, making coffee while the sun crept across the kitchen tiles. Melissa joined him with a calmness that no longer felt fragile or forced. They moved around each other with ease, not avoiding tension, but no longer ruled by it. One Saturday morning, they sat on the balcony, sharing a blanket and a quiet breeze. Melissa rested her head on his shoulder, something she hadn't done in months without overthinking it. I'm glad we didn't give up, she murmured. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. Me too. We just needed to actually see each other. She smiled, small but sincere, the kind that carried both gratitude and growth. The past lingered, but it no longer dictated the future. They understood each other in ways they once avoided. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but truthfully, and truth was enough to build on. As the morning light brightened around them, Melissa exhaled slowly. Ethan leaned into her warmth. And together, they began the quiet work of choosing each other again, day by day.